So I came across this subject this morning. I do my YouTube research when I get home. I like to watch YouTube, try to get some real information. I watch a lot of different trucking channels. Try to learn something new every day. And so this is a subject that I've been involved with since I've been in with trucking. I started out as a lease purchase operator, owner operator. And from day one, I did my research and I've seen these guys. If you look up anything on a forum and try to get information off these trucking forums, you're going to get Mr. Negative every single time. Squeaky wheel always gets the oil. Those guys in there, somehow they turn into super truckers, and then they want to tell you, if you're a company driver or if you're a lease driver, you're never going to succeed and you're trash. But somehow they made it. They did it and they made it, but you can't succeed. I don't understand the logic there. But when you're looking at something in those trucking forums, it might be the last place you need to look for information. But if you do, just take everything you see in there with a grain of salt. Uh, when I was this video, do you know how videos randomly come up, and there's a trucking video talking about lease purchase, and I watched it. It was to do with Lone Mountain, and the guy, I've seen his videos before, and he was saying how great Lone Mountain was and how good of a program it was, and how he was just loving it and all this stuff. And so watched most of that video. I think I'd seen it before. I was flipping through and I see another video from the same guy saying lease purchase sucks. Here's why. Now, he obviously based that on some of his information, but I know the guy, I've seen some of his videos. I know he went bankrupt at one time. So again, take those things with a grain of salt. Most of the people, when I hear them complain, and after having experience of going through these things, I realize they're blaming the wrong person. Most of the blame for anything that I mess up on lies right here. I want to blame somebody else. I want to tell everybody, yeah, it wasn't my fault, point the finger at somebody else. But usually, all of you know, when something goes wrong, it's usually right here, bad planning. So when you're watching these guys, remember, these guys are on here. This guy was just saying how wonderful his lease purchase program was. And then a year later, he was telling everybody how bad leasing sucks. So take those with a grain of salt. But I'm going to go over some numbers here real quick. Maybe they'll help you, maybe they won't. I'm sure I'm going to leave lots of stuff out because I'm coming at this from my perspective, which is I've done several leases and there was nothing bad about any of them. I did my research, found which ones I wanted, and had pretty good experiences. I walked away from all of them. I got a little bit money back from all of them. And so I'm going to show you my experience. And I know I'm going to have people saying, well, you can't compare this to this. What I'm comparing is apples to apples. Purchasing a new truck, buying a new truck, or at least purchasing a new truck. So think about that when I'm showing you these numbers. Okay, so let's go over some of the, the lease versus buying, some of the good points and bad points. And this is where I think a lot of people don't do the whole comparison. And I know I'm going to leave some things off here, good and bad on both sides. So you guys can hit me up in the comments and I'll get it straight. But so buying a truck, I'm going to go out and tell you this is the best option available. You'll make more money doing it this way. But 99.9% of the people can't do this because usually, even if you have great credit, you got to have great credit to buy a new truck anyway, but you're going to have to come up with 20% down, maybe more. And right now, that's $40,000 or more for a brand new truck. Not many of us can do that. So keep that in mind, $40,000 down. And so let's say you got it. You want to do that. That is a huge commitment. I heard somebody give a speech one time and they were talking about how life is like your what do they call it? Your breakfast plate. You look down at your breakfast plate. You have the scrambled eggs on one side and the bacon on the other. And That chicken, he was involved in there a little bit. You have some eggs, but that pig was really committed. So you have to be really committed, and it might get you, you might get you slaughtered. But um, so you have to have great credit. You have to have this huge down payment. But keep in mind, that's just the down payment on the truck. You still have to have some money to keep going for the next however long until you start getting paid. So then you've got your truck, then you're stuck with it. If you'd have bought a truck 3 years ago and put that big down payment on it, and a year later you wanted to sell it, you would have been in terrific shape. But right now, $200,000 probably wouldn't even buy you a new truck. They're probably more than that. I haven't priced brand new trucks lately. But think about it in terms of this very moment we're living in now, 2022. You're going to go out and pay $200,000 for a truck. You're going to sink $40,000 in down payment just to get it home. What happens if you get a truck that's every single truck, no matter if it's brand new or if it's used, 20 years old, they're all going to have issues. They're all going to have to you pay to get things fixed on them. But there are some that are, we'll just call them lemons. There are some that are going to nickel and dime you to death from day one all the way forever. I don't know why, but those trucks exist. And so what happens if you get one of those trucks? That's going to put you out of business. It's hard to get over having to stop every couple of weeks, get something fixed. So breakdowns, but like I said, that happens on everything. Maybe your health gets bad in, a year from now, and you can't drive anymore. You fail a physical or something like that. Well, you're only left with a couple of options. Either you hire a driver and you put him in your brand new truck and pray that he doesn't mess it up, or her, or you sell it. But you probably now, with the truck market, it's probably headed back down now. You're going to have a hard time selling it, even though you've already paid $40,000 on it. That $40,000, it probably went down that much when you drove it off the lot. So you're not going to be able to sell it unless you take a huge loss. If the market goes down, one thing I didn't put on here is banks don't want to work with you. They want their money. They want to pay their investors. So, the market goes down, or company goes out of business, or doesn't pay you on time, or doesn't get your checks right, all kinds of things. That bank is going to come after their payment. If they can't get their payment, they're going to take your truck, and then they're going to come after anything else you have. Banks are not going to, work with you on payments, or if you have a breakdown, you're going to have to borrow more money, or you have that money in the bank. Just keep that in mind. Those are the downsides. There's probably a whole lot more to that, but keep that $40,000 in mind right there. So going on to the lease purchase versus buying a truck. So to get into a lease truck, you can find lots of lease purchase programs out there where you have to have zero down, nothing. Get into that truck, start driving, earn money the day after you get that truck. Okay? No credit. You don't have to worry about credit. And here is the huge one right here. Walk away. Most leases are walk away. And even if they don't say walk away in the lease, you're probably still good. And I'll get to that in a minute. One of the things I thought about right as I was writing all this down, I started thinking, the shop rates. When I was at Prime, their shop rates were awesome. Their parts were inexpensive. Lots of things they did extra for the drivers, so they took care of their drivers. If you take this truck to the dealership to get it fixed, if it's not covered under warranty, some of these dealerships charge up to $200 an hour to work on stuff. Then their parts are marked up 50%. So that's something else to think about. Shop rates you can get if you're leasing a truck from Prime or Werner or Swift, whoever. Your shop rates are going to be very good. Here's a huge one. The company. When you lease a truck, that company becomes invested in you. I don't want to insult anybody out there, But the dumbest thing I ever heard, and I hear this over and over, is I hear people say, yeah, when I leased a truck, they shut me down. They didn't give me miles or nothing. They did it on purpose, and I wasn't able to pay for that truck. They got their truck back. That is the dumbest damn thing I've ever heard. It makes 0 sense for a company to do that. That first of all, they didn't get any money out of you for this truck. Secondly, they're not making any money unless they collect a payment or the wheels are rolling on that truck. So why would they shut you down and lose money? That truck will be sitting there another month until some other driver comes and picks it up and starts rolling with it. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. In my experience, as soon as you lease a truck, that company becomes invested in you, and they're going to do everything they can to keep you rolling, including if you're not making money or if you've got a bad truck, they'll keep floating that bill for you. And if you do have one of those lemons, it could get you way behind. But again, you come back to this walk away part of the lease. So yeah, if you hear somebody say, "Oh, don't lease a truck," they'll shut you down on miles. They prefer to give loads to company drivers, and don't believe that. You still have the the lemons out there. You could pick up one if you're in a lease truck, and if it starts nickel and diming you or something, something big goes wrong with it, I'll go right back to this: walk away. Late payments, they're not going to come after you like the bank. What they're going to do is say, "Oh, you missed a payment," and you tell them whatever reason it is, and they'll say, "Okay, this is my experience." About a month or two after I leased a Schneider truck and took it to Landstar, the turbo went out on it. When I called Schneider to put it in the shop, they said, "Oh, the warranty just went out on that thing." And I was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna have to pay for this out of my pocket." Put it in the shop. They say it's gonna take 4 days. They told me about how much it was gonna cost. And I called Schneider back, talked to my representative. She goes, "Don't worry about the truck payments. We'll just defer them, and you can pay a couple $100 every week for the next couple weeks." And then she went beyond that. She called, and somehow they were able to get it covered under warranty, and I wasn't having to pay for that turbo. Thank God. But yeah, she worked with me any way I wanted to. So you want me to take 300 out of check or 200, that type of thing. Doubtful you're going to get a bank to do that. But I didn't have to go out and borrow money. Didn't have to do any of that. Didn't have to worry about that. So, there's good and bad to both. Like I said, take this every time if you can afford that big down payment and if you're committed to doing it. This one, let me talk about the walk away part on this. I've walked away from 3-4 leases, had good trucks, decent companies. I wouldn't say great, but when I left, let me give you Prime for an example first. So I worked at Prime for 2 years. Like I said, I had my game plan. I knew I was going to be out of there at that 2-year mark. Actually, I worked there 1.5 years. I wanted to get up to that 2 year of experience. And so when I got that 2 years experience, I took them their truck back, and I'd already had financing lined out to buy another truck. In their contract, it says it's a walk-away lease. On their webpage, it says they're a walk-away lease. Well, when the bank called them after, I won't go into the details of how nasty it got with this dispatcher, but basically, when I told him I was leaving, instead of running out that month or something on that dedicated contract, he cut me off that day, made me come in. So it wasn't no big deal. But when the bank called to see if the lease was a walk-away lease, Prime told them, "No, this isn't a walk-away lease." So I sent the paperwork, my contract from Prime, and I sent them a screenshot of their webpage that said walk-away lease. And the bank said, no, they say you owe them lots of money. And Prime said, no, ours is not a walk-away lease. Even though I went to the lady and said, hey, here on your webpage, it says walk-away lease. And here in your contract, it says walk-away lease. Nope, you're going to owe us money. Well, 45 days rolls by, and this is the normal thing. 45 days after you turn the truck in, you get a settle-up payment. So whether you owe money or not. Since I was putting however much was in that maintenance fund, hadn't hardly used any of it, they said, okay, we actually owe you this amount, here's your check. So they owed me money, but they still tried to screw me and to keep me from leaving. But that's how it goes. Most of the time, I would say you're probably going to get a little money back when you walk away from these leases. There's those times when you rat these trucks out that you're going to probably owe a lot more. But I've never heard of anybody getting sued over something like that. So good and bad to both. But here's another big thing you got to think about. And in the leases that I've done, when you figure out the dollar amount that you pay, buying versus leasing, leasing is more expensive. $10,000 to $15,000 more is what I saw when I did my research on the apples to apples truck. You're going to pay $10,000 to $15,000 more for this lease truck. But here's the big thing. You either pay now this $40,000 up front, take your chances that none of this goes wrong, or you get that truck, make money, and at the end when the balloon payment comes due, which is at Schneider, the balloon payment was the value, the market value of the truck. And so if the market value is $40,000 at the end, you can either choose to buy it for that amount or give it back to them and get a brand new one. If you buy, you're getting your tax breaks every year that you're making payments on it. If you lease, you're getting tax breaks every year that you're leasing. So at the end of 4 years, you're still probably going to owe more on this truck. Or on the lease truck, you can make that balloon payment, get that financed from somebody, and then you'll have a truck and you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So, like I said, pay now, and then you're making your money, you're making your profits afterwards. Or get the truck with the lease and make your money, and then decide at the end whether you want that truck or not. I'm sure I missed a lot there. There's a lot to this, but hopefully you get the gist and you see that leasing is not a ripoff. I mean, there are probably some out there that are just absolute ripoffs. I haven't come across them. I've heard some horror stories. I don't know if they're true or not, but do your research. Okay, so the downfalls to leasing. I think most of these pitfalls can be avoided, but these are the downfalls. The big one is when you're first coming out, if you don't have a couple years experience and you don't have the choice of getting a Schneider truck and taking it to Landstar, or leasing a truck from somewhere else and taking it to a different company, you're gonna be limited to leasing a truck and staying with that company you leased it from. That's a big downfall, but choosing the right company to begin with, it limits that negative experience. So, if you don't do your research and you just lease a truck from wherever, CR England, and you try to, I don't even know if CR England has a lease purchase program, but I do know their pay is crappy. But that's what I'm saying. Just do your research. Make sure, because you're going to be stuck with that company, make sure you're getting into a decent lease and that you're going to get paid enough to make that payment and be home, whenever you want. Lots of, you might do some research on what kind of truck driving you want to do. Lots of flatbedding companies get everybody home every weekend, and sometimes during the week, depending on what route you can get. So do your research on that. Might be a little bit more work during the week, but flatbed pays a little more. So in my experience, I was with Prime for a couple years, and for the last year, I was on a dedicated account. I was home usually Thursday night or Friday night or Friday afternoon, and I wouldn't leave home until either Sunday evening or Monday morning. And that was every weekend, and I made a very good check. I was able to save quite a bit of money over there and pay for a brand new truck. So do your research, figure out what lanes you want to drive, what kind of driving you want to do, how much you want to be home, and try to fit those categories to a lease purchase and a company, because that partnership is very important. You could be the most responsible driver in the world and the most dedicated, and if you're not at the right company, it's not going to work out for you. So that is one of the downfalls to it. Do your research on your lanes and stuff like that. A lot of companies offer percentage pay or mileage pay. I prefer percentage pay. Some people like mileage pay. Not a whole lot of difference between the two, but I believe the percentage pay will pay off. You'll make more money doing that. I was recently asked a question by somebody whether they were thinking about going to a company like F2F, where you can pick your loads from anywhere and go anywhere you want, whenever you want. You are your own boss. Or a company like, I forget what the name of the company they were asking me about. It was basically a company where you went there and they gave you loads and told you where to go, but they paid $1, whatever it was, $1.30 a mile plus your fuel service charge. So to me, that there really isn't a decision to be made there. I'd take F2F every single day, even if the money was a little bit less, because I had more choices. But think about it this way: you're making, if you go to that other company, you're making $2 a mile. You'll never have the opportunity for a big check. You can only get in so many miles per week. But if you have the opportunity to go to companies like F2F or Landstar or Mercer, you always have that opportunity to make big money, because of your negotiating skills, maybe because you get on a good contract. But you can do the same amount of miles at both. I'm just saying, if you have your freedom of choice, I'd take that any day. Usually equals more money also, but that you're going to have some experience to make it to that point. Relationships, that's a huge one. That can make or break you right there. When I was at Prime, I had a dispatcher, even though I was an owner operator. I won't try not to say anything negative, but he was just one of these people. He had the complex, the ego, the what do they call it, Napoleon complex, basically. If you were doing exactly what he wanted you to do, you were good to go. But as soon as you break out of that, he couldn't handle it, and things just went south, and then you kind of ended up on the back burner, and it just wasn't a good situation. There's some situations like that. I could have asked for a different dispatcher. We had a couple of run-ins, not as bad as him and some other drivers, and I could have asked for a different dispatcher, but I knew at that point I was just biding my time to get to a different place. So relationships are very, very important, because they can make or break you when you're trying to make $1,000 truck payment every week. What I did there was I just ended up doing everything I was asked, never asked any questions, just did my time. And at some point I got a call from this guy saying, "Hey, I got this dedicated route, do you want it?" And again, I jumped on it. I did more than was asked of me, because I knew I had that goal. At that 2-year mark, I was going to be gone over to Landstar. So yeah, those are the downfalls. The big one is, you're going to get stuck with one company. It may not be a bad thing. That might be a good thing. But until you get that truck paid off, you can't take it anywhere else. So keep that in mind.